Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 4Corners podcast. I am Shad here with Matt and Brad. Guys, how are you this evening?
Doing good.
Doing good.
All right, I'm glad to hear it. We want to thank all of you for joining us for this episode. We're going to get our shout-outs taken care of. So the first one is going to be to Collar and Elbow, the wrestling brand, collarandelbowbrand.com. Use the promo code 4Corners Podcast. That's the number 4, capital C, and Corners, capital P, in podcast. No spaces, and save 10% off your order. And for our other shout-out, we hand it over to Matt.
Yeah, my shout-out is going to go to the daring man of mystery, the champion of right. He swoops out of the shadows. He owns the night. You know, Shad, somewhere there's a villain scheming, but his number's up. You know why? Because when there's trouble, you call Orlando Colon.
Did you look up the lyrics to that?
I totally did. I 100% did.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Although you would think I would have the committed to memory, because I actually do remember the theme song quite
There
well.
were two openings, though, because there was, like, the shorter opening that they did in syndication, and then, like, the Saturday cartoon had a longer one.
Had a second, it had a second verse that started with "Out of Smoke and Heat of Mist," but that's all I can remember. So, we want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and if you didn't pick it up for Matt's joke, Brad, what are we covering this evening?
Well, as we promised last week, because we would have had like a 5-hour show, I think, if we had kept talking about it. We're talking about Darkwing Duck because I think out of all of the cartoons we've done so far, that is the one we felt the most passionate about. And I think it's one we actually all have good memories of, which I don't think for any of the shows that we've done so far that's true across the board.
Yeah.
Except Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't, when I think about, like, my favorite cartoon shows of all time, like, there's a lot of heavy, like, superhero or science fiction type shows that probably rank up there. I mean, obviously, like, most of the Batman shows have been, like, my favorite. Batman the animated series, like Justice League.
Yep.
I love shows like Gargoyles. It's, like, really heavily towards that kind of genre.
Static Shock was a good show when that was out.
That was pretty good. Based on the milestone.
I never saw Static Shock.
It very much captures. If you've ever read Silver Age Spider-Man, it very accurately captures the feel of like Silver Age Spider-Man.
Ah, okay.
The production values weren't as high as other shows, but it was a pretty good show, and they did have they had some good writing on that show.
They did. So it was Dwayne McDuffie, I think, was doing the writing on some of that.
And that's from they haven't really done anything with it in years, but Chad, you're aware of like the Milestone comic imprint?
Oh yeah, I had when I was young, the second big round of comics that I read, the first was a stack that my grandfather had from the 60s and 70s because he was a middle school teacher, and his philosophy was, if it takes comic books to get boys in my class to read, then dang it, I'll buy comic books. So he had this giant stack. But the other big thing that got me reading it was my parents, from this consignment store, got these long boxes that had not only Milestone, but like almost the full run, like Valiant, almost the full run of the Unity event, and like everything that came after it. So
and Valiant went to crap really quick. It was awesome for like 2 years, and then it just like fell apart.
Isn't that when they got bought out by Acclaim?
No, Acclaim was much later. They got rid of Jim Shooter, and then like,
there's the problem.
Without him helming the ship, it kind of all went. Because that's like when they started doing like the motorcycle with Exo Man of War.
Oh Lord!
And then the Acclaim stuff was like a reboot.
Okay, that's right, because they changed Shadow Man in a big way to where it wasn't even the same.
And Exo was just like a guy in a suit of armor. Like they did away with all like the cool.
Oh, with all the Viking stuff.
And the alien symbiote that it essentially was, yeah.
Oh, that's so lame.
It is.
But yes.
What didn't Static Shock do crossovers with with Batman Beyond.
Well, he's essentially a DC character because he's been in the Teen Titans now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they merged that back. I think around 2004, 2005, they started to merge that in a bit because I know the Justice League at some point in the late 2000s had some event with some of the Milestone characters.
Yeah, there was a crossover that I'm looking up. It's called Worlds Collide. But that was in '94.
There was like a brief story in Justice League, probably around 2007 or 2008, that dealt with some of the Milestone characters.
Oh, here it is. 2008, the continuity of Milestone characters was modified, and the Dakotaverse characters were placed within the mainstream DC universe.
And they proceeded to do Jack All with Static in the
Titans. Yeah.
Yeah, because he did that for a while, and then they gave him, when they did the New 52, they gave him like a series, but it didn't last long. But they made it like super dark.
Okay.
Like I think he lost his arm like in the first couple of issues or something, and it was just a little too. I don't know. I mean, I think the original Milestone Static was more mature than the cartoon, but I think it was a tone-deaf decision to like do like the grim Drac with it.
I get very tired of the grimdark because so many occasions the grimdark is done just to be grimdark. Like, in Warhammer 40K, the purpose behind the grimdark, where the term comes from.
Satirical grimdark in 40K though.
Well, yeah, it's supposed to be that way. Like, the idea is the whole universe sucks, and that's why everything is fighting each other. That's the same way in Warhammer Fantasy. But then you have some people who are like, oh no, we're going to take this title, and we're going to make it grim and dark. And it's like, whoa, you guys, no, don't do that. Don't. Never mind.
It's like it's like we're gonna be cool and awesome like Watchmen, but we don't have anything to say, and we don't have a purpose like Watchmen, so it sucks.
And we don't know where we're going.
Yeah.
This is like a weird kind of comparison, but they've kind of extended this to some what was like children's properties in terms of TV. Because my wife and I watched Riverdale on the CW, which is a completely just batshit insane show. Like I could literally talk for like an hour about just how like ridiculous and insane that show is. And if you like read any of the Archie comics, it's like it's wholesome. It's nothing like the show. The show is just dark. It's like a grim dark version of Archie. Like the current storyline is there's like 3 different storylines. One is Riverdale. It's like set years in the future, but Riverdale is basically like a dystopian hell. And some of the other characters, let me think. Betty is a fledgling member of the FBI, and she's being stalked by a serial killer called the Trash Bag Killer, who looks visually. The best way I can describe it is imagine like the Scarecrow from the Arkham games, the Batman. It replaced the burlap with trash bags. It's like this horrific, like demonic, like. It is like Jughead is being potentially stalked by aliens, specifically Mothmen. That's the show currently.
Yes, this is more wild sounding to me than the fact that Archie's biggest crossover that I can remember was with the Punisher, and I have no idea how that might work.
No, I think they did an Archie vs. Predator one at some point.
Oh my god!
Well, they did like everybody versus aliens versus Predator. They did Superman versus aliens at one point.
I will say I did like because I think Todd McFarlane might have been involved with that at some point. The Batman vs. Predator comic from like the early '90s, where they did like the 2-issue one.
I never read that one.
But I mean, like I think Archie did Kiss, but the actual Archie line has done some darker things. Like I think the death of Archie and some stuff like that. They've done some experimental stuff. The last, I don't know, ever since they changed the art style, probably in the early 2000s.
I guess that's fair enough. There's only so many times you can tell the same golly gee whiz story, but
I mean, they've been going since the 40s, so obviously you can.
But Riverdale sounds, what's the phrase I'm looking for here? It sounds like you're, you know what? I don't have the analogy. I don't have a handle of it. I'll just leave it. Never mind.
It's batshit insane.
They have a Sabrina show on Netflix, but we watched like one episode of that, and I just could not handle it.
We watched the first season of that, and it was really bad early on. It was basically like someone was basically trying to do a ripoff of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I don't mean that in a good way.
They were trying to do like woke Buffy, and it just was like really like I don't necessarily care if you want to shove your woke politics into something, but it was really poorly done in that one. And
the show did get better. It's become less like Buffy and more has found its own rhythm. It's not the best show on television.
And I didn't find the actors to be particularly great either. Like especially the actress playing Sabrina, I didn't find particularly compelling.
The Kiernan Shipka, who is probably best known for playing Sally, which is the daughter on Mad Men.
I got nothing. I watched like 5-6 episodes of Mad Men and then just quit because I was like, I don't like anybody in this show. There is nobody for me to root for. That's the
problem I had with Breaking Bad. My wife and I watched about half a season, and I was just like, I don't like anyone enough to keep.
Yeah, that was my problem with Breaking Bad too. Is I was just like, look, I get that there's a story about the descent and all that, but I just don't care.
If I'm gonna spend 45 minutes on something, I know there's gonna be a lot of people that would cast stones at me, but I'd rather watch something like Burn Notice where the characters are fun, and
they're morally gray, but they're still principled, and it's a fun show.
Yeah.
I mean, he got one street gang to leave these folks alone by dressing in black and walking down the street and snapping his fingers and cars blowing up. That's fun.
Or even like Dexter, which I didn't like as much as my wife, but that one was, they played it better where he wasn't likable, but the way they would pit him against like the bad guys was interesting. And like part of I think what made that compelling was even if you wanted Dexter to get his comeuppance, like that was compelling enough to keep you going. But Breaking Bad, I just couldn't latch on to anyone. Did you like Breaking Bad, Matt?
I actually liked it a lot, but I do understand that criticism. I think that's fair. Because eventually the characters become more and more like morally compromised. I felt the reason I think Breaking Bad it's okay is because they never like really sugarcoated it or made it like whitewashed it. They didn't make it seem like, well, no, actually Walt's like a good guy. It's like no, they pretty much made him be an asshole. And at the very end, let me spoil it for people. At the very end, he like acknowledges that eventually the evil things that he was doing, like he just did it for himself. Like he liked it. I think that's better than, for example, like Shonda Rhimes shows, where all of her characters are like completely morally compromised, just terrible people, and they're always presented as like heroic, like, well, I did a really shitty thing, but I'm right, like it was good that I did this. It's like, no, it's terrible.
My wife watched Grey's Anatomy for a while, and like the main character, they were getting rid of what's that lady's name? She was an Arliss.
Yeah, I don't know.
They were getting rid of her character, and they were trying to like make her unlikable, and she finally had enough with the main character. And I don't know who you're supposed to side with because like they're kind of making her a jerk, but it's like, no, you're actually kind of right about the main character. And it kind of ruined the main character because after that you just looked at her as like, yeah, she was totally right about you, that you fell behind like the curve. and you're trying to hold everyone else back because you can't handle it. And then she also, the other problem I have with her shows is she has like no creativity. So her way of getting rid of characters is just to horribly kill them, which just gets old after a while.
Yeah, that's... Look, the thing is that there are so many grim people who want to do grim dark, but then it's not going anywhere. It's not doing anything. They just wanted to make a thing that is the grim dark. It's like first of all, part of the reason Dallas started to drop was the fact that they killed Patrick Duffy's character, who was the only person that people liked on that show.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the problem with Patrick Duffy, though, is he's the leg of a scuzzlebutt, so how are you going to properly cast him?
Well, okay, yeah. Yeah, I know that, but at least he wasn't at the time of the show. So, but...
it's really sad that I threw that out there and that reference was totally just gotten completely.
Yeah, I just picked it up without missing a beat.
No, I have to say, I just want to throw it out there because I'm very upset about Matt. We did if you guys haven't seen it yet, we did a guest appearance on the Open Airlock Policy YouTube channel if you want to see our ugly mugs.
Yeah.
But Matt totally missed when he was talking about how much he likes Hacksaw Jim Duggan's Instagram page. You totally missed when I like threw in the side comment of his love of blenders.
Oh God, I missed that.
Yes, you did, and I was so upset. Like, I don't know if you could see the look of disappointment during the stream, but I'm like, damn it, Matt missed that.
And by the way, I think it was established, right? It was finally established that whole infamous Death Valley Driver review message board sleaze thread was started by Tony Khan.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is insane because at the time I remember like that was like a legendary thread in the internet wrestling community
it's
for
still
years
infamous,
and years.
though, because you hear a lot of stuff that people will say like on like the subreddit or other message boards, and you know it's bullshit, and you're like, no, that's and you know it started because because it started from the sleaze thread, and it's caused so many urban legends that have just gotten passed down as truth.
And it's kind of hard to parse out what is actually true from that list and what isn't.
Well, there's only really two true things in that whole thread, and it's the blender from Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Jimmy Valiant and the table.
So that one's confirmed true?
Oh, I don't know. I think someone's asked. I'd have to look at shoots. I bet someone's asked Ricky and Robert about that.
I don't. If I was in their position, I'd be like, we ain't talking about that. No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, I think someone did ask in one of the U shoots. They asked Tommy Rich about the Jim Barnett rumors. That I think that might have been from the sleaze thread. But that might predate the sleaze thread.
Okay.
I think I might have predated it.
Yeah, it might have. Because they also asked him about if he like dyed his pubes, which his response to that was really funny. He's like, man, I couldn't even fit them in a thing to to dye. His shoots are really hilarious. Like, Tommy's really like a character.
From my understanding, the characterism helps with a lot of sauce.
He's pretty. I think he throws a lot of shade, but he also will admit, like, I was kind of a dick when I was a kid. Like, I got success early, so like I wasn't a perfect angel either. And sometimes he said, yeah, that guy was kind of a dick, but he was dealing with me, so I can't blame him. So he's kind of. It's not like, I will say that the best you shoot one though is just because it's the most utterly insane thing I've ever heard is the Manny Fernandez one.
Oh Lord.
And like that man is he's not Billy Jack Haynes level, but he's up there.
Wow.
Didn't Manny Fernandez throw shade at the stories about Ming being a tough guy?
No, I think he said that everyone wanted them to square off because I think Manny was a bit of a tough guy and they didn't actually fight each other.
I've seen clips from that where Manny is missing many teeth.
Yes, he's very fat.
Yeah. So that's quite a field from where we were going.
The booger sugar is a harsh mistress, Shad.
Yeah. That's what I hear.
The point, Chad, that I originally wanted to make was that I don't rank. I usually rank all these other great shows as like my favorite cartoons of all time, but Darkwing Duck is actually up there.
Yeah.
I loved this show back in the day. I loved it. And my schedule is very busy, so I don't have a chance to watch nearly as much as I want to, but I really do need to make time and watch Darkwing Duck on Disney Plus.
It's a very competent superhero show.
It's almost like 100 episodes if you count every episode. So I want to just plow through all.
I honestly think he's not a pure superhero show because he has some very pulpy elements in there.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's kind of a mix. Like, if you don't know what Darkwing is, he's kind of a mix. I mean, Batman started off as pretty much. I'm about to throw some shade here. So if you like Bob Kane, which you shouldn't, I'm going to throw some shade at Bob Kane being a talentless plagiarizing hack.
Okay.
But Batman is essentially like a plagiarized in his very early forms with Bob Kane. He's pretty much plagiarized right from The Shadow.
Yeah.
So Darkwing Duck kind of splits the difference between The Shadow and Batman.
The other thing
that's fair. I would actually agree with that completely.
The other thing that I like about Darkwing, in kind of the overview sense, is not only is it a pretty good superhero show, but it also, for lack of a better term, kind of takes the piss out of superhero shows, because Darkwing is not always good at things he wants to do. Sometimes he either lucks into a win or he's just bad at it, at whatever it is he's trying to do. And, just being able, every now and then he slips on a banana peel, and you know what, that's fun. That adds a nice fun twist to it. And it's not always, he doesn't have to be hyper competent all the time. It's okay if he screws up.
And I think what contrasts it well is 99% of his villains are threats and competent.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Also, his hatred of Gizmo Duck is wonderful too.
I mean, look, Gizmo Duck's kind of a blowhard, though.
He is, but the problem is with his suit, he's good at just about everything. So he shows up in Darkwing City and starts showing him up. So, yeah, Darkwing's a glory hound, and he can't stand Gizmo Duck.
I do love Stego the Dino Lad. He's one of my favorite characters on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. I know who you're talking about, but I want to look it up because
He started as like a henchman to like some scientist that turned them into dinosaurs, and the scientist was like a pterodactyl.
Was there Mastodon, saber-toothed tiger, and Tyrannosaurus involved as well?
I don't remember. And I was looking at some of the villains, and I didn't realize that Fowl had as many agents as they had.
I didn't remember that either.
Because they have Steelbeak, and then, I don't remember her name. There was like the cleaning lady.
Got nothing for you.
And then there was like a chameleon, and there was one other person.
You know what? This is going to be easier with TV tropes.
And then like there's Quackerjack, who I remember there was one where they teamed up because like what was that guy's name?
The Fearsome Five.
Yeah.
It was Negaduck, Bushroot, Liquidator, Megavolt, and Quackerjack.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember those. I think it was two episodes.
Yeah.
Because you had to have Darkwing get his own team, the Justice Ducks.
Yes.
Yes.
I always
And they
say
had to team up, and it was such an homage to basically, like the Avengers teaming up against like the Masters of Evil, or the Justice League against the Legion of Doom, something like that. And it was I like marked out. I remember watching those episodes. I taped them onto VHS, and I watched them quite often.
I think it's more fun to say it as the Just Us Ducks.
Yeah, they kind of dance back and forth on it. By the way, Brad, I think that Stegmutt is who you were referring to.
Yeah, Stegmutt the Dino Lad, yeah.
Yeah. Now that I've looked at him, like, yeah, I remember that.
Who was his voice actor? Because his voice, I think, was in the Smurfs.
Joey Cammon.
Okay, I don't know that name off the top of my head, but I bet if you looked him up, he did a bunch of stuff.
He did, looking him up, he did deed voices for the Smurfs.
Okay, yeah.
He had a very unique voice. He had this I guess with the Stegmutt character, he had a very unique voice that I felt was used in a lot of different things. And looking at his work history, he did a bunch of stuff with animated programs.
And then I was looking because it doesn't exist in the same universe as DuckTales. I think they did a crossover in the new one where he shows up for DuckTales, but it uses so Launchpad McQuack came over, Gizmo Duck came over, Flintheart Glomgold did a cameo when Phineas Sharp stole that list of Shush agents. And he was auctioning it off. Flintheart is one of the people that showed up with the Steelbeak and Hammerhead.
I would thought that it was established that it was part of the DuckTales universe.
Yeah.
I think it's an alternate DuckTales though, because Launchpad McQuack is not quite the same guy.
No, but he talks about how he used to work for Scrooge whenever he first showed up.
I'm saying though, it's not. It's like an Earth 2 Duckburg that he interacts with though, because Launchpad is not the incompetent pilot anymore, because he doesn't crash like the Thunderquack.
I don't know. I just attributed it to being later in the timeline, so maybe Launchpad had learned a little bit, but
because that was the joke in one of the DuckTales, is there was one where he actually landed it right and he was actually pissed off.
Oh, really?
He didn't crash it, and then going back to DuckTales, there's also where you meet his family, and they were the flying launch pads? They were like a circus act, where they could like a flying circus act or something.
I don't know.
I want to say, did Magic of the Spell ever show up on this? I think her bird did. Her bird sidekick might have showed up once.
Don't remember. Let me see. I was looking at the Launchpad thing, but that's just...
And I think
there's just too much to go through.
I think actually, if you go back, one of the most popular episodes of DuckTales where Launchpad becomes a secret agent, I believe he's working for Shush in that one too. And he's taking on Fowl, if I had to guess.
Those are some really good. Those are some really good names, and the fact that the head of Shush was J. Gander Hooter. Hopefully he's a little bit better than his namesake.
And I remember the Launchpad secret agent episode from DuckTales, because he had that toupee that had the gun in it.
I don't remember that at all.
Gigander Hooter was a good one. What was Igor's last name? Because there's Igor, who Darkwing hated, and they always got into...
You talking about the bear?
Yeah, the bear.
Vladimir Grislikov.
Yes, he was one of my favorite characters from that show.
Yeah, I'm looking at his TV trope list right now. That's another good name. That's the Grislikov. That's just a great name.
Now, who was it? Let's do a quick one. Oh, Tuscanini and Moriarty were Also, two of his villains.
Mm-hmm.
But who would you guys say your favorite villain was? Because I think mine was Megavolt.
Megavolt would have to be my number one.
Megavolt was really good.
I liked all of the Fearsome Five. To be quite
They
honest
were
with you.
they were all really good, but if I'm gonna pick one, it would be between Megavolt and Bushroot, because I liked them because they, even though I didn't know how to say it at the time, they weren't like direct XPs, it felt like, of other characters. You know, Quackerjack is very much a Toyman Joker thing, right? Negaduck is very much the inverse of the main character thing. But Megavolt, Electric Villain, Bushroot, you might be able to call him kind of a Poison Ivy thing, but not exactly. He didn't seem to carry the same kind of story. So, you know, I'd have to throw it up between them. Now, I can say that I think Bushroot was more irritating in the NES game, but my memory might be
I did want to
failing
talk
me
about
there.
the NES game.
I absolutely want to talk about that. Yeah.
Because, well, let's just talk about it now, because this was probably the last of those great Capcom ones. But it's essentially a shameless Mega Man ripoff, and it's excellent.
Yes, it was completely a Mega Man ripoff.
Yeah.
And although different in style a little bit, did you guys ever play Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers?
Yes, so
That's
much.
Also a blatant ripoff of the Mega Man games. Is there like a specific? I know it's like an action, like a side scroller,
Kind of an action platformer thing.
Yeah,
Platformer,
action platformer.
But is there a name, or would you give a name to something that's clearly like a ripoff of Mega Man? Because Mega Man itself obviously was an action platformer, but these games were like so.
I would just call it a
like,
Mega Man clone. It's
yeah,
like how
there was a few. There was a few for the NES back in the day.
It's just like, I mean, I guess that's the genre now, because like when you talk about roguelikes, they're just based on Rogue from like 1981, but that's the genre now. They call it a roguelike. But like they used to call what did they used to call Diablo clones? Were they just Diablo clones, or were
Hack
they
and slash.
hack and slash? But
Yep.
you know, I think I would call them Mega Man clones. They're kind of action platformers, but I don't know, because it's weird, because Mega Man's very unique in like the stage select and how
The stage select and the power up aspect.
and and how the weapons interact with the world. Even though the Metal Blade from 2 is the best weapon of all time.
It didn't take up a whole lot of special energy. It did a lot of damage. It was a good choice.
But I was listening to a podcast, Retronauts, which is excellent if you want to listen to people talk about old video games. They were ranking them a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about Mega Man 1, and I forgot about those stupid platforms and Guts Van stage they'll just randomly drop you.
Yeah.
And you have to like know when they're gonna do it. And I remember how much that like just confounded me as a kid. Or the disappearing platform puzzles.
I really hated those.
Yeah.
But the Darkwing game carried some of the stage select aspect. Like each phase of the game, there were 3 missions?
There are 3, and if you beat them, I think, because like the first one was like Bushroot, Quackerjack, and maybe Liquidator, and then the second group I don't remember. I know Megavolt was one of the second ones.
Mm-hmm. But you didn't like get power ups from beating them, but you had different types of gas that you could put in the gas gun.
And
so
DuckTales also had the stage select to it.
Yeah, it did. That's true. See, I don't know that I want to call it a Mega Man ripoff. It played a lot like Mega Man because it's built on the same engine, but it didn't, at least for me, carry a lot of the hallmarks that Mega Man did. You know, the stage select was much more limited. You didn't have power-ups that you got for beating certain stages.
You had some different moves, like you could block bullets with your cape. You could grab like a platform and jump upwards, because some of the bosses some of the bosses required you to hang from a platform and shoot them. I think Liquidator did.
Quackerjack totally did.
Oh yeah, that was Quackerjack. Yeah, because Quackerjack's usually the first one you fight because his stage was the easiest.
Yeah, but there wasn't other than the ease of the stage, there wasn't an optimal way of tackling them.
No.
Like in Mega Man, you start here, you get this one to beat this one, you get that one to beat that one, you get that one to beat that one, kind of stuff.
I actually think, just to go on a side note, I think of the Mega Man gameplay, I think Mega Man X1 is actually the ultimate version of it, because what I love about that game is there is a certain way to do it, but if you beat the stages in a certain order, it affects other stages. Like if you beat the Ice Penguin stage, it extinguishes all the fire in the Flame Mammoth stage.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I didn't play any of the Mega Mans plus probably 3.
They start to get crappy after 3.
I just never did it. Now, I played Rescue Rangers so much that I could... that was one of the first games that I could just be like, hey, I'm gonna go beat Rescue Rangers, and I just would.
That's when you find out who... Rescue Rangers is a good test if someone's your friend or not.
Huh.
Oh. If they pick up the box you're hiding in and chuck you off an edge.
Yeah, well, there's actually a funny story. I think it was Andrew or Adam Fitch were talking about. It might have been. I'm not going to. They do Retronauts and some other podcasts, but they were talking about how when New Super Mario Brothers came out, they went to some event and they got to play the game with Miyamoto.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about how I absolutely idolize this man, and we start playing, and he thinks it's absolutely hilarious to pick me up and throw me in a pit over and over and over again. So this guy I idolize is just murdering me in this game over and over again and laughing his ass off while doing it.
I have some friends that refer to that game as Super Mario Brothers Divorce. You never play that with your spouse.
That's what. Have you ever played the board game Diplomacy? That's called the Friendship Ender.
No, I haven't. I've been curious, but I never did.
Because the backstabbing is so notorious in that people can't handle it. That's the way. I've seen. Have you ever played Munchkin?
Oh Lord, yes.
So
I can't say that I have.
So
I've
hang
never
on.
heard of this.
Let me see what I've got. Munchkin.
Cthulhu is the best one.
I have Munchkin. I have Star Munchkin. I have Super Munchkin. I have Munchkin Foo. I have The Good, the Bad, and the Munchkin. I have the Christmas Munchkin expansion packs.
The Cthulhu one's pretty good. That's the only one I still have.
My brother has that one.
But I've seen people lose their mind over getting screwed in that game, and like you have to tell them like that's the point of the game is to be a dick to each other.
Mm-hmm. It's built into the rogue card. Backstab your friends.
Yeah. Killer bunnies. I've seen
it?
people get mad about killer bunnies too. Back in the day.
I only ever played Killer Bunnies once, and I got irritated because we sat down to play it. My wife and I sat down to play it with another couple. And the guy was just like, oh, let's have a good time. But his wife was like, this is how you play Killer Bunnies. And she just destroyed us. Like, the first time we were playing it, she just wrecked us because she would not take her foot off the gas. And it's like, oh, that was fun for you.
See, I hate when people do that. Like, if I teach you how to play a board game, I'm not going to put the kid gloves on for you, but I will purposely make suboptimal moves throughout the game to keep you in it.
Yeah.
And to not like run over you. But there's a good chance I'll probably beat you, but I'm going to make suboptimal moves along the way to keep you.
It keeps you involved, and that's fun.
Yeah.
But no, she just wrecked us. And we were like, I don't remember what all the phases of a turn are, but hey, you've pulled all the cards out of my hand, so good for you.
And usually when I teach someone, we just play open-handed the first time or two. Like, honestly.
The first time I played Munchkin, I got irritated. Like, the friend that taught me the game was notorious in his friend group. It's like, if you play that with him, you take him down. But he kept finding ways to win. So, but the point is to get to level 10. Nobody ever told me until I had like the level cards in my hands, and you can sell items to a certain gold amount to buy levels. So I sold all my stuff, and then I dropped the cards in my hand to get to level 10. He goes, "You can't buy your way to level 10." And I was like, what? And he's like, "You can't do that." And I was like, "Since when?" And he pulled the rules out and flipped to it, and I was like, "You were going to tell me this when? Because you're just now telling me that after I have, like, processed my whole turn and finished everything, and you're just being like, oh, you can't do that. Guess you don't have any cards in your hand now." So
that's my problem with Munchkin is, like, you have to figure, like, to win, you have to figure out a way to be able to bounce from 8 to 10, or else you're just going to get destroyed at 9 every time. Yeah,
well, I didn't win that game, but I just made it a point to make sure he didn't either.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's like, I understand why that mechanic's there. It's to prevent exactly what I was trying to do, but you've got to tell me that from the beginning. Otherwise, I spent half the game building to that, and then all of a sudden I've played all my cards, everything's on the table, all my equipment's gone. You're like, oh, that doesn't work. Next person's turn.
No, I think the guy got mad because he was level 9 and he came up against the monster that he could beat at level 9, and then I like pumped it up to like some insane, I think I pumped it up to some degree where he couldn't beat it, or then I pumped it up and turned around and got someone to screw him, so like he was even weaker, and then he just got murdered and he was pissed. And it's like, but that's the point.
Yeah, the kill stuff, get loot, backstab your friends, I think is the tag to it.
Yeah.
So it's built into the game. Anyway, back to Darkwing.
The game is really good. It's I don't know if it's better than DuckTales, but it's probably my second favorite of the Disney Afternoon games.
Who's the final boss in the NES game?
I don't even remember. I was trying to remember.
Isn't it Steelbeak?
I think you're right.
I was curious if Taurus Bulba came back or not.
I never owned Darkwing Duck, but I did for some reason. I mean, I should have just had my mom buy it for me, but for some reason, I rented this like multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's happened to me before. I do own it. It's actually not super expensive. You'd think it'd be much more expensive because it's one of those later issue Darkwing games. I mean, one of those later issue NES games, and those can get kind of pricey.
Yeah. Well,
you can. I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, not to encourage pirating, but I really do need to mod my NES Classic so I can get this game and other games downloaded.
You can get the Disney Afternoon bundle on Steam.
I don't think it's no. I think they took it off.
Did they?
They took DuckTales off, but you can get it on the PS Store.
I think it's on GOG too, isn't it?
I don't know. I know you can get like Aladdin and Lion King. Because I remember we were laughing at that. Matt sent us that video of that woman playing Lion King in the game, just like brutalizing her.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. She's like, game over. It's like, yes.
You know what I liked about that video though is she had a sense of humor about her badness about it. So when people were teasing her, she was laughing along with them instead of getting like defensive and butthurt about it. Because my favorite one is some guy comment under that was like, "You bad," and like she just like sent him back a picture of like Donald Duck pouting, and I thought that was really funny. But like usually people get really upset about that stuff. But
well, it's much better than the gaming journalist, this is the infamous clip, like the gaming journalist who like couldn't even play the tutorial of Cuphead.
Oh, Dean Takahashi.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I know his name. Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah.
So the Disney Afternoon Collection is still on Steam for $20.
Okay, you can get that. Folks, if you want to get it on Steam, do what I do. Put it on your wish list, and they'll email you when it's on sale, because you could probably pick that up for $4 if you wait.
Yeah.
And I think it has Tailspin, Chippendales, and DuckTales. I don't know about the sequel.
It does. Let's see. It had DuckTales, Chippendale, Darkwing, Tailspin are all there. Chippendale 2 and DuckTales 2 were there.
Okay.
So.
I love DuckTales. DuckTales is one of my favorite NES games.
Oh, it's really good. It's really good.
And it's actually beatable. That one's not too hard for an NES game. Because I think when you talk about NES games, stupid Ninja Gaiden 1 and those damn birds.
Oh.
Is it wind and
Yes.
birds?
Yes. Yeah. Because there are, but that's just like a game that's just almost like fucking cheap.
Yeah.
Levels.
There's a section in the very last level that unless you glitch, like intentionally cause it to glitch or manipulate the spawn points, it's actually impossible to get by. There was a guy named Lord Cat who had a video series called Until We Win, and he would play through this stuff until he finally beat it. Like he would hammer his way through this stuff, and that he's like, unless you do this right here, the spawns for this platform right here will kill you every time, no matter what you do.
That was the problem with those games, is that the enemies would respawn. So it's like if you go, slightly off screen and come back, it's like the enemies have returned. Which if it's just a standard enemy, like maybe that's fine. But they would put enemies on like a pillar that you need to jump onto, or else you're gonna fall to your death. And it's like,
or you had knockback like in Castlevania, or Castlevania is also guilty of one of my biggest crimes of early video games, is enemies that you cannot hit with both of you standing because they're too small.
Oh yeah.
Because those damn fleas.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You got that from a lot of stuff. I mean, heck, the original Ninja Turtles game was pretty lousy about it too.
Well, the problem with Ninja Turtles is Donatello's overpowered in that game.
Yeah.
Because there's that one fight, I think it's Rocksteady, where you can literally just stay on top of the boxes and like bow down and kill him without even doing anything.
Yeah.
And I did.
But
routinely.
Oh yeah.
But where that game can fuck off is that those underwater levels with like the electro seaweed.
I never had a problem with those.
Oh, I always had a problem with those.
Yeah, same.
I just end it with about 5 seconds left, but I would just take it easy, take my time, and I'd get I'd get through it without a huge problem.
And
I saw a meme the other day, and I think I even sent it to friend of the show, Damian Gonzalez, the Dames, where it was basically it was a screenshot of that TMNT game, the water level of that fucking like electrified seaweed. Yeah. And the meme was just basically like, kids these days will never know the pain. It's like, yes, those underwater levels were an absolute chore.
Well, have you ever seen the AVGN where he couldn't get past that one thing, and then they figured out after the fact that you can literally, because of some glitch in the graphics, like you can literally just walk across it, and he was so pissed.
Yeah, I know exactly which section he's talking about.
It's sad that you know those things.
I had the same reaction. Like, I remember that because I had that very reaction to that section.
There's one in a Sonic game, I think it's Sonic 3, where you just had to stand still and it would do the thing, and it like everyone got stuck there, and it was like some really stupid like what was it? I'll have to look it up after the show. But there's an infamous Sonic 3 one that people got stuck on.
Yeah.
Old video games and the pain that they caused us. Or, I don't know how I beat it as a kid. Zelda 2. That game is brutal.
That's what I hear.
Brutal.
That's one of the things I have heard regularly is Zelda 2 is rough. It's kind of like Monkey Island 2. Good luck.
I don't think I played Monkey Island 2.
Yeah, there's a very specific sequence at the end of the game, and if you don't do that, you can't beat it.
Is this like the old point and click adventure thing where if you screwed something up early, like you couldn't finish the game? Like I think it was
King's Quest.
Space Quest, where you couldn't if you didn't pick up some random piece of glass, you couldn't get past lasers later in the game, but you couldn't go back and get the glass if you missed it.
That totally happened in King's Quest V, even. Was if you didn't pick this thing up, then you couldn't cut the ropes. You were tied up in the basement.
Oh.
And it's just like, wow, guys. Like, that's one of those games where you end up picking up a strategy guide because it's not, the level of unfair is not fun. It's just super obnoxious.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't know how far back I need to go in order to not screw this up. So I guess I have to start all over. Yay.
So then, to go back to Darkwing Duck, I think his supporting cast was really interesting because you had Goslin, who is his adopted daughter. You had the next door neighbors, which were the Muddlefoots, who Darkwing did not like. The dad was Herb. I don't remember the wife's name.
I'll be able to tell you in a second.
And then their son Honker.
Herb and Binky.
Herb and Binky. Okay.
Yep.
That's what I was gonna say. So it's kind of, he's kind of like the typical, what would you say, braggadocious neighbor, and
gregarious, I think, is the term.
And he did not care for them because his name was. So his secret identity name was Drake Mallard, which I think is a great, hilarious name.
That's a great name. Okay, I know they asked it in one episode, but what does Drake Mallard do? Or is he just, like, independently wealthy?
I don't know.
Right? There was an episode where he ended up in, quote-unquote, the real world talking to human kids who asked him that question, and he never answered it.
I would imagine Shush pays him.
I don't know. I was just hoping if you guys had ever heard what it was supposed to be.
Maybe he's living off of the stipend that he gets for having adopted Goslin.
Are you gonna? Well, I mean, he had all that stuff. He had his breakfast obstacle course set up before that. But I was gonna say, are you gonna be telling me that he lives off of shush money?
I mean, yes.
Matt, what about you? Do you have any ideas?
I also thought maybe he was just like independently rich, because it's never that I can remember established like what he actually does,
right?
Besides being Darkwing, obviously.
Yeah.
Let me Google it. I feel like accountant should be in there somewhere. Maybe he said that as a cover.
Maybe. Yeah, even TV Trope says seems to have no other job but as a crime fighter. So
maybe he's getting bounties off of like catching these guys.
Maybe.
Or maybe he just steals from them.
Oh, like Blade?
Yes.
I did enjoy that his method of getting to the his secret lair was in his recliner.
That was, yeah.
I liked that a lot. Like, of course he sits in his recliner a lot. It makes sense.
And then, he has his girlfriend, Morgana, who started out as a villain.
Yeah.
And then, is her family in very many episodes, or just like one or two?
Which one?
His girlfriend, Morgana.
Morgana Macabre? Former CEO of Macabre's Mushrooms.
And who's much taller than him.
Oh, yeah. She sure is. He's like half her height.
Oh, and they did. I also want to say, as a specific episode, their take on the Dark Knight Returns that they did with Darkwing was really good.
Oh yes, I remember that one.
Because that's like the
You
one
did.
where they go to like the alternate future and like Goslin dies and he like goes off of his nut and like kind of becomes this like fascist dictator of Saint Canard.
Exactly. He basically, it's under essentially martial law with him as basically the sole authority.
Because he makes these robots.
Hmm.
And you find out like I guess the point of it was like Goslin's his humanity, which I mean I think that's been like the theme through the whole show because when the series starts he's just living in that tower doing nothing, sleeping all day, fighting crime at night.
Yeah.
And then Goslin
Yeah.
like forces him to be like a real person.
Yeah. I'm trying to look for something right now, but I don't have it.
And Taurus Bulba did come back in season 2.
Yeah, as that cyborg.
Yeah, that one was kind of intense. I think it would be kind of intense for a young person, like with him overheating and stuff.
Yeah, that I remember that one made an impression.
Yeah, because they end up like on like a cliff, don't they, or something? Like,
Bulba flew away, but I don't remember. That was his escape because Darkwing was in a wheelchair for that episode.
yeah, because I don't remember what happened to him though.
I think he had a skiing accident.
Yeah, that would make sense. He was kind of a klutz.
Like I said, I like how it takes the piss out of a lot of stuff by making him not great at everything.
I mean, he really doesn't have superpowers. He just kind of has his gas gun
Mm-hmm.
that occasionally looks like it can be used for lethal purposes.
I don't remember that, but
There's also an episode where he
Okay.
tells his origin that's obviously bullshit, but it's like he has like some mystical power and he like grew up in a monastery and stuff.
oh, the Kung Fu episode.
Yeah, because that's one where like I think we talked about it on the Saturday morning ones where like they find him as a baby and like the sensei like picks him up and his diaper's obviously dirty. He's like, we shall call him Stinky as he like holds him away.
Yeah.
Because in that one, his like how he does like the gas thing is actually like a superpower he got from a genie.
Oh, that's right. That's how he makes his really cool entrance.
Yeah, that's how. Because the episode is like it's like a future version of Goslin and Honker in a museum, and it's like Darkwing is obviously like an old retired janitor.
Yeah.
And telling them the story, but it's obviously like not true.
There was the episode where his master, his kung fu master, showed up. I remember because he never mastered the belly bounce, which was supposed to be like the ultimate move. And then by the end of the episode, he did or something. But he's talking about, he's like, I'm going to put out half-hour home tapes with all my martial arts skill. And Launchpad goes, DW, who's going to want to watch you for a half hour? And then they stop and very slowly look directly at the quote-unquote camera. And they're like, and the episode cuts off.
And then there's also the video game episode where he ends up in the game. And Goslin has to like help him by using the video game character to help him out. I think that's a Quackerjack episode.
I think so too.
Now, what was the weird one with that ghost? Was it Paddywhack that like took over Mr. Banana Brains?
That is Paddywhack.
And he stole like Quackerjack's sense of humor eventually.
Mhm.
That one was a very creepy one, actually. I would
Yes.
be interested to see that one again. It had good range though, because there were some episodes that were very comedic, but then they did some really good, I would say, horror-based episodes.
Hmm.
Wow, there's really just so much stuff to mine in this show.
Matt, would you like to cut loose? Brad and I have been talking a lot. Is there anything you want to cut loose on?
No, I'm just kind of following along.
Okay.
I'm looking through like Wikipedia. There's a lot of characters I don't really remember, like some of the one-off characters.
Okay. Yeah, I was going through the TV tropes listing, and I'm running into that a lot myself.
Do you remember Lilliput, the guy from like the golf course that would shrink things?
I think I do remember that one.
No.
That was a really early episode. I think that was like the second or third one that was on TV. Because this was actually this still happened in this era, but I think this is one of the last shows that was syndicated to regular TV while having a Saturday morning run at the same time. So if you were watching this back in the day, the episodes on Saturday morning would not hit syndication until the next year. So like the weekday shows had their own thing going on, but Saturday morning was a different set of episodes.
Yeah, that was the new stuff. That was if you wanted to see the new stuff, you watched it on Saturday morning.
And you said it had 100 episodes, Matt? Or like 99 or something?
Close to it. It looks like it had 65 in that first season. And then like the Saturday morning stuff that was that came afterwards was
26-ish episodes.
Yes, exactly 26.
Okay.
Spanned over 2 seasons. So do the math. It's like what, 91?
Yeah.
So close to 100, but not quite.
I hate when shows get closer or have an odd number of episodes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the 26
rounded out.
The 26 is kind of like just gravy because 65 was usually like the syndication run for most of those shows, like those animated shows.
Yeah, because I think we did. I don't know if Shad was on the episode, but I think you and I figured out that if you did a 65 episode run, that was almost 3 months of TV, which gave you 4 cycles of the show throughout a calendar year. If I remember correctly. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't mind this a little more than they did. Like, I know there was the Kaboom comic book that happened right before Disney bought Marvel that was really good. And I remember they used to have okay, this is gonna really date me, but they used to have comics for it in the Disney Afternoon. What would you call that? Was that like a digest magazine? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh wow, I do remember actually. Now that you actually mention it,
because you would get it up like where the Reader's Digest was, or like that the tabloid stuff. It wasn't like a comic book, but it was like
Okay, now I got you.
It was like those mini magazines that used to be popular back in the day. It's like what those if you happen to be in the grocery store now, those Archie Digests, it was like the same size as those.
Yes, I remember that. I never actually got that as a kid.
I don't think I was ever subscribed. I think I'd pick it up every now and then. I know my friend had a subscription to it. Do you ever remember? This is going even further back and dating me even more because I know everyone had one in the 80s, but the Highlights magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
or
about.
Or every
yeah.
dentist office still has those lying around.
Yeah, well, yeah, because that's the best thing for small kids. As long as you don't leave crayons lying around, they scribble all over everything. But
everything. So yeah,
he said from experience.
I think we're gonna get into some bigger shows, kind of coming down the pike.
Mm-hmm.
That will, I think, be bigger to me than Darkwing Duck. And I do want to, just some things that we're going to do this year, and I don't know when. I want to go through all of the Garfield primetime animated specials at some point.
My wife has 2 of them.
Which 2?
Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Those are good. There's one that, well, no, there's actually two that were really scary for me as a kid. The Halloween special with the ghost chasing them at the end,
Okay.
and I think it's Garfield in the Rough where the panther attacks them.
Yeah, I don't
Huh.
remember that at all.
I don't remember that one.
I can send you a clip of it.
Hmm.
They're most of them are actually on Amazon, and then there's like, because there's the first one which is just like a rerun of like his gags from the comic strip. Then there's, I think it's Garfield on the Town where he meets his mom, and there's like, it's a very 80s like street gang-ish kind of thing, more like 70s because it came out in 81.
Uh-huh.
And then Garfield in the Rough, there's the one where they go on vacation and they like, that's actually one of that one actually has Wolfman Jack doing a voice in it, and they have to
Oh,
drive
really?
like this Corvette into a volcano to satiate the gods or something.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, there's some crazy. The Garfield animated primetime specials get a little nuts.
It sounds like it. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then I know Matt and I are dying to do it, and we'll probably have to drag Shad kicking and screaming. But I want to do at some point I want to get the time to do like a watch along of the Transformers animated movie.
I'm down.
Yeah, because it's an underappreciated like animation classic.
Transformers,
I
more
will-
than meets the eye. It's
Yeah.
worth it for like the 80s hair metal soundtrack.
You got the touch.
And it
I
has
will do my
Orson
dead level
Welles in
best.
it, Leonard Nimoy, Eric Idle.
If we do that, I will do my dead level best not to sing along to Dare to Be Stupid in that one scene.
Robert Stack's in it. At the height of
as long
his
as we don't
powers.
hear the Unsolved Mysteries theme, we'll be all right.
No, he's Ultra Magnus. He's Ultra Magnus in this movie.
Okay.
And then there was something else I wanted to do, but I don't remember now. Oh, and we are gonna have Tim back on because I won't spoil that one until we have him on. But it's gonna just be I don't know. It's just gonna be Matt and I shit stirring. Because I think it's we're pretty much just having him on to crap on the Mandalorian ending, aren't we? With Luke.
Were we also going to talk about? Are we also going to get into the extended universe, like the old extended universe Star Wars stuff?
Yeah, we can do that because I have a fondness for that. I'm actually reading the Marvel comic for Star Wars from like the 70s, the one that was like coming out like as the movies were coming out.
Yeah.
Which fun side fact, that went for 107 issues and nothing goes that long anymore.
I actually have a fondness for the extended universe stuff too, the original extended universe. I have probably like quite a few of the books,
I did at some point.
but now I feel like I need to actually go back and try and find them.
Most of them are on Kindle.
Yeah, I'm sorry to be like, almost like a Luddite, because I have no issues with technology, but if I'm reading a book, I want like an actual book.
I don't have space for that stuff anymore, sadly.
Well, yeah, I don't really have space either. So oftentimes, like I have books and then I read a book, unless it's like an exceptional book or a book like the, let's say like the X-Men books for the Star Wars, something that it's like I have a fondness for that I want to keep. Like once I read a book, I'll kind of just like throw it away. I'll get rid of it. But even so, I actually like reading like an actual physical book.
I know I read back in the day. I read quite a few of these. There was about a 2 or 3 year period where I was super into these, and I read that stupid. What's the really bad one, Shad? Do you always know the name?
Say it again.
What's
me.
the infamously bad novel that like takes place between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back?
Are you talking about Splinter in the Mind's Eye?
That one.
Yeah.
Well, I read that. That's not the best, but that was kind of like one of the very first This before they even did like they really went to town on the expanded universe.
Yeah.
With like the Zahn books. Two that were really bad were like Darksaber.
Oh my god!
I don't think I read
And-
that
Oh
one.
my god!
Courtship of Princess Leia
Oh,
was
that
also like
one's bad.
really bad.
Guys, I look. First of all, I'm going to say that that Darksaber is worse than Courtship of Princess Leia, and then second, what is it? Crystal Star is worse than either one of those.
Oh
Hey,
yeah, I've
Crystal
heard of
Star
that
is
one.
what I was thinking about.
Oh god, it's so bad. By the way, Splinter of the Mind's Eye came out in 1978 before Empire came out. So, it was just kind of like,
Cash in.
yeah, let's write this thing.
We should say this. I should probably say this for when Tim comes on. But if have either of you read the Han Solo trilogy and or the Lando Calrissian trilogy?
I think I've read the Han Solo one. I don't know about the Lando one.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware there was a Lando one until like a few years back, and then I was actually found it at like a used bookstore, and I actually enjoyed both of them. They're kind of different, and if you read a lot of the expanded universe stuff, and these books were written like way before that. I mean, they were written kind of like contemporaneously with the Star Wars movies, so it's a different kind of characterization. But they're actually pretty good. They're not bad.
I remember in the late '90s when I was super deep into Star Wars, they released these books, and one was about characters and one was about the starships, and it had extended universe and movies like in the books, so like it would have like all the characters from like all the books and like all the different starships and stuff, and talk about their history and like their appearances through the various books over the years.
Let me see. I'm looking another one that just, oh my god, aggravated the hell out of me. There was a series of books that was called the Black Fleet Crisis.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I never
Yeah, I
got
remember that.
past the first one. It was just atrocious.
I didn't really. We're like really just wasting all of it. We should save our
I know.
No,
Save
we'll
our-
come back to it.
save our Kindle.
I will
so to
I
speak.
will spout my vitriol again.
Yeah, we're pretty
whenever we come back
vitriolic
around to
about
it.
covering the same ground over and over again. I think my biggest offender was, I think it was one of the first Dark Horse comics. It might have been Dark Empire or something like that, where the Emperor comes back and like they totally Deus Ex Machina Luke, where he has to fall to the Sith and come back so he can pick up Sith powers so he can beat the Emperor, and it just like
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's Dark Empire.
Yeah,
that's
one-
basically what Rise of Skywalker was.
Oh yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, Luke. The cover has Luke running around in Vader's clothes, except for the helmet with his green saber. It's yeah. The worst.
You know what I love about
we're just gonna sit on it.
EU though is once Knights of the Old Republic came out and the Old Republic became an era that people wanted to write in, it meant that you got to enjoy Star Wars without a Skywalker in sight.
Yeah, some of my favorite Star Wars books were the Tales from Mos Eisley Katina and Tales from Jabba's Palace, because they were stories that didn't directly involve the main storyline. Like they came up against it, right?
Well, some of them touched it. Like I think the Cantina Band from A New Hope, like their story, like kind of like skirted around it a bit.
Yeah. Well, they all kind of touched around it. That one did. The bartender story did. The Tonica sisters story was very loosely tied to it. In Jabba's Palace, the Rancor Keeper story was very loosely tied to it. But you know what? They got, well, for the most part. I mean, oh my God. The Jawa and the Jawa's tail, and then there was I can't remember what they're called, the rat thing. There was a rat race. Those were just, oh God, atrocious. But for the most part, they were just kind of fun, and they didn't, they didn't hammer on anything. It was just kind of like, it's like these were just folks who happened to be sitting around in the, sitting around in the cantina in that scene. It's like, wow, that is way, way more fun to read.
Yeah,
the Ranat, that's what it is.
Well, and I liked how Lucas, if he could, like in the prequels, he would tie little things back to EU stuff. And he tried to, like, obviously his stuff superseded it, but he did more than pay lip service to the idea that everything was canon. Like, I don't know why Disney killed it all, honestly. That still baffles me.
There's not new money to be made.
I mean, they tagged it all as Legends. It's so stupid. But I mean, their new stuff is bad. Like, I was listening to a stream.
It's worse. And they could have actually incorporated it, or at least in some respects, they could. They didn't have to just completely kill it.
Yeah, it would not be hard. Like, what I always wanted is, if you're gonna do after the main series, due to the Heir to the Empire trilogy, you don't have to do everything that's in it.
Just stop and think. Like, they didn't have to do it exactly like the books, but imagine how much better
you mean
the new trilogy would have been if they basically loosely followed the Heir to the Empire, and they could have even incorporated the new characters into this.
Instead of just having the New Republic roll over to the First Order, that hey, they're getting their feet wet and they're kind of getting off the ground, and then like their best admiral that was out in the outer system suddenly comes back with his own fleet, and he's their best admiral. So
yeah. That was part of what I love about Thrawn, is the fact that Thrawn is not like, oh, need a Death Star. Thrawn is information, and tactics are the super weapon. And that's what made him so dangerous, is that how clever and capable and insightful he was. It was not, hey, so another Death Star? Another Death Star, cool.
Yeah, I don't get that with especially the extended thing, because if you look at it through not the prequels, but once the Empire is like its own thing, like all they do over and over again, even into the First Order, is they just keep trying to make Death Stars, even though they keep getting blown up. Like, it's kind of asinine when you think about it.
It's so lazy.
It really is, because J.J. Abrams is like, hey, guess what's better than a bigger Death Star? Dozens of Death Stars.
Yeah, the interesting. I was talking to some friends and doing some reading, and they came up with some sources for me, and I can't cite them. I'd have to go back and bug them for it. That apparently there was an actual arc that was supposed to be planned out for the sequel trilogy.
I don't believe.
And then after the first one, after the first one, Abrams was like, okay, I've done my part. I don't want to be the Star Wars director. They're like, okay, and then they got Rian Johnson, and they were like, Ryan, make a great Star Wars movie. We won't bother you at all. And he made what he made, and just like ditched the entire arc that was supposed to be there. He's like, I'm gonna do my own thing.
Well,
I don't care what's been set up.
I truly
and
believe.
So Abrams was trying to cram 2 movies into the last one back on the original arc.
I truly believe that J.J. Abrams left him notes on what and like in ideas that he could build on, and Rian Johnson trashed all of that. But as far as like having it planned out to the end, like I've seen enough J.J. Abrams stuff to know that he did not tell us what's in the box.
If we have Tim on to complain about Star Wars, I really want to do like an in-depth, like that dissection of The Last Jedi, because that movie angered me so much. And not even from because people like complain. It's like, yes, like I'm an older guy at this point, but I'm not approaching it from you're just an old fan who likes it the old way. Like I was more than willing to give the new stuff a chance. It's like I cannot stand that movie just from a like logical narrative storytelling perspective. Yeah. There's so much issues with just the narrative storytelling there. There is poor characterization, essentially. Like there's so many things that are wrong with that film that don't even approach upon like what themes that he may have been trying to do with it. It's just a bad piece of storytelling. It's like, so I want to rip that apart from an actual like technical storytelling perspective.
You know what it
infuriates me.
You know what I especially hate about the Disney sequels though is just the fact that they don't put any aliens in anything. It's all humans.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I could pull my hair out, and if we talk about the Mandalorian season 2 finale, like I could specifically pull my hair out about how like you're literally it's established with at least a galaxy, and I don't know if people know what a galaxy is, but there are literally thousands upon thousands of solar systems in a single galaxy. And that's one galaxy out of multiple galaxies in a universe, just like a quadrant. So why does everything have to be the fucking Skywalkers?
I know.
And I've complained to this, again, friend of the show, Damian Gonzalez, the Dames. I've complained where it's like, why does it have to be everything Jedi / everything Skywalkers? And it's like, I get that they're, I guess, the greater concept heroes of the Star Wars universe, but again, it's like it's to an absurd level.
Well, it was fine for the first 6 movies because they were completing like the arc between Anakin and Luke, but like in the new movies, like they did not get away from it.
No, they didn't, and it's insane.
But there was no like heir to the throne, but they were still stuck on it because.
And that's something we can talk about with Tim, like with regarding Mandalorian. I actually like Mandalorian, but what I really got frustrated with at the end of season 2 of Mandalorian is that the thing that Mandalorian was great about is that it stepped away from that. It was like, okay, we're not going to actually do anything with the Jedi. It's our own story, which basically it was a space western that was mixed with essentially like a shameless ripoff of Lone Wolf and Cub, the old school manga series,
which we talked about. That's actually very back to the roots for Star Wars, because Star Wars is a ripoff of a couple
Hidden Castle.
A couple of Kurosawa films.
Yes, which for those who are not aware, like they are samurai movies, and Lone Wolf and Cub is about a samurai and his son. So a Ronin, a wandering samurai, and that's kind of like the concept that that Mandalorian had. It was basically like a Ronin, a wandering samurai, and splashed with like westerns. But I mean, for those who have seen Fistful of Dollars, like they're literally. Seven Samurai was remade as a western.
Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
Fistful of Dollars was Yojimbo.
Oh yeah, Fistful of Dollars was Yojimbo. Like literally, like samurai films and westerns, like American westerns, have much the same themes, to the point that some of what's considered some of the greatest westerns of all time were literally just remakes of classic samurai films. So.
Yeah, I think Kurosawa might be like the most ripped off director in like United States cinema.
He is one of my favorite directors of all time. He is arguably Japan's greatest director. He's one of in my opinion, he's one of the greatest directors of all time. Period. Anyway.
Oh, easily.
Yeah. But yeah, like it was brilliant because it was showing the Star Wars universe that was kind of like we're not dealing with Jedi, even though even though like Baby Yoda, who I guess isn't really Baby Yoda, you know, he has an actual name, but Baby Yoda had some force powers, but it wasn't really like a big thing. And then they had to shoehorn Jedi stuff into it, the seasons 2, which is like,
Yeah.
okay, man, I get that that's like your thing, but not. You literally have established it's like an entire universe that you have. Like you don't need everything Jedi.
Yeah.
You can have your own. You're doing an Obi-Wan series. Like how about you take the Jedi stuff and you just put it there.
Or that extended universe from like I think the Clone Wars cartoon, that rogue Jedi that they're just obsessed with putting in everything and like protecting her at all costs because she's like one of like the executives like pet like,
that's
creation.
That's
which
why she showed up in Ahsoka. That's why she showed up
really?
in The Mandalorian.
That's why?
Because one of the executive producers is the guy that created her and was trying to backdoor pilot a show for her.
Yeah,
that's why we had that whole thing.
And that's why she was somewhere else and did not get killed in like the Great Calling of the Jedi during Revenge of the Sith.
Okay, I mean I haven't seen all the episodes. I'm literally like 1 or 2 episodes into season 3 of Clone Wars, so it's like it ran for 5 or 6 seasons, I think. They did do some episodes at the very end that I'm aware of that did Ahsoka versus like Anakin when he became Darth Vader. So it's like I'm okay. Like if you want to have her like survive the Purge, like Order 66, you want to have her survive because you have some stories you want to tell. Like that's fine. But I don't really want her a Mandalorian.
They're doing a show or a spin-off for her because, like I said...
Of course they are. Of course they are, because that's another thing. Like, put a pin in this so we can bitch about it. I can bitch about it when Tim comes on. It's just like the exact thing that Disney and other companies in Hollywood do. Like, they almost, literally, a franchise, i.e. Star Wars, that you could have said... Like it's a license to print money. Like it's a franchise that has persisted for like 40 plus years, and had a rabid fan base.
And it was a merchandising powerhouse until Disney got a hold of it.
And they literally, through their just incredibly poor management and narrative decisions, they almost killed the fucking franchise.
In like 5
years. They literally
years.
killed a billion plus franchise. Yeah, within like half a decade, and it honestly, it took a guy who's actually talented and actually cared about the source material in Jon Favreau to save them with Mandalorian. And he saved the franchise. Now, a logical thing would have been to like, hey, let's just chill for a little bit for like 3-4 years and let Mandalorian do its thing. It's massively popular. That alone is like a merchandising powerhouse. Baby Yoda has sold I don't know how much merchandise. Like just go with that. Let it go 3, 4, 5 years. People would be into it. It's like no. Like it had 1, I guess now 2 successful series. Disney goes, oh, okay, let's have 20 new Star Wars shows / movies. It's coming your way, guys. It's like, have y'all not learned your lesson? Like you are literally saturating the market, and the law of averages, guys. Like the law of averages, like half of the shit that they're going to push is going to be like mediocre or bad, probably.
Like I don't even like what they're doing with the Marvel shows right now. Like I really dislike that the second WandaVision was over, that Winter Soldier and Falcon started.
I was talking to my wife about that because I'm like, oh, we need to start watching. We just finished like a WandaVision, and I'm like, yeah, we can start watching Falcon and Winter Soldier. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, that literally started like a week after WandaVision. And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I personally feel, look, I don't dislike their strategy. They're obviously
gonna burn
moving
people
away.
out though.
Yeah, probably, but I don't think it's the worst idea. Basically with Avengers Endgame, like the whole like original 10 years, 11 years of the continuity that they've established with the Marvel Cinematic Universe basically ended. So I don't mind them taking those characters and then just putting them in like these premium TV shows that have high production values and more concise storytelling. Like, I'm okay with that, and then you can focus on the new, big budget movies and characters that you want to push. Like, I'm okay with that, but I disagree with them doing it back to back. It's like y'all should have. It should be like, you have WandaVision, you have Falcon and Winter Soldier, you have Loki, you're gonna have Hawkeye. Okay, that's 4 shows.
And
really,
what
there's
if one
a
of
fifth
them's
one.
bad? You need some time to get like the stink off of it.
You got to stop and let it breathe, because if you're just putting out stuff all the time, people are going to get tired, people are going to get bored, and if you don't give them a chance to look forward to it and build the anticipation.
They should do 1 a quarter.
Yeah, because
the episodes
at least
the episodes are not that long. I mean, at most.
Well,
WandaVision
got longer and longer as it went, though.
It did, but I mean, they're not. This isn't like, here's a 65 episode season, or even like a 22 episode season. It's like, it's max of like 10 episodes.
No, but like,
so you could easily do the 10 episodes that would last like 2.5 months. Then you can give like a couple months break, and then you go into the new. And it's not like, oh yeah, next week we have the new show. It's like, you should just dial it back a little bit.
But like with WandaVision, I could have used a palate cleanser of like a month after that, because I like the show overall, but I feel like they lost faith in their concept, and I really did not need like the twist at the end with like Agnes and all that stuff. Like, I really could have done without that part of the show.
I like the show. I did like the show. I people have complained somewhat about it, and I can kind of understand that.
I don't care
did like it.
I don't care that it didn't shift the meta. I don't need that. Like, it could have been what it was, but like, I really like the
people,
idea.
I think, got upset about that. They thought that it would be like this. They thought, some people were honestly like, and that's kind of like the rumor mongering that went on. They were like, oh, in this show, they're going to debut who's going to be the meta villain for the next years of Marvel movies. He's going to be like the next big bad, like Thanos was.
Oh, I didn't care about that.
They didn't do that. They didn't do that, and so people got disappointed. When in reality, like, WandaVision was basically a prelude or a prequel to what's going to be Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff that gets introduced in WandaVision that, for those who follow the comics, it's like Marvel's kind of magic universe, supernatural universe that Doctor Strange is a part of. Like, a lot of things get introduced, characters get introduced that's going to play a part. So I was fine with that.
But see, like, I liked it when it was like Darcy and Monica Rambeau and some SHIELD agents trying to figure out how they were gonna like stop this whole thing, and then they kind of like brought the Agnes part in, and then it ended like on a standard superhero fight, and I was kind of like, like, I really didn't need like the superhero-y stuff. You guys were doing good the other way. It feels like you lost faith in yourself.
The real problem I had was I didn't like how they were portraying the motivations of, well, I guess it wasn't SHIELD, it was SWORD, the SWORD agent.
Yeah.
Where he's presented as like this villain because, oh, he just wanted like Vision returned as like a weapon. And it's like, not quite, but if you actually stop and think about it, and they even like reference this in the show, it's like Vision is literally, if you try and make it realistic, which you have to suspend disbelief and kind of believe like this is supposed to be presented in like a realistic world, like Vision would literally be one of the top weapons in the entire universe.
Yeah.
Like, not universe, but the entire world. It's literally an artificial intelligence that is in an almost like indestructible body that can be just an absolute, like, the completely destructive force. Like, of course he would want to actually bring Vision back online or dismantle him, like, because he's too powerful. And then we're supposed to be like, I mean, I actually did. I personally did. The show got really like emotional towards the end, so I kind of did feel for the Wanda character, and my wife even like shed some tears at the end because it did get emotional. But
I feel like they kind of wussed out a bit and tried to whitewash a bit what she did at the end.
They kind of, yeah, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, they did whitewash it again. They kind of presented it as like her grief was making her irrational, but you literally had her enslave an entire town full of people, and when they were the rare times that a character like Vision actually freed them from the mind control, like they literally were like so upset and terrified that some wanted to die, or some people were just like, oh my god, my daughter thinks she doesn't know what's happening to me. You need to just let my daughter know I'm okay. It's like really dark shit like that.
And they kind of shied away from like, I feel like,
because it would present Wanda as like kind of a monster. They do kind of whitewash that, where it's like, well, yeah, maybe she was like out of her head because. And
I really hated like when Monica Rambeau is like, they'll never know what you gave up for them. It's like, fuck you.
Yeah, it's like you never know what you gave up, and like she did give up a lot, but
she
it's also like, well,
people for
she literally enslaved an entire town, and so I think maybe like it's at a minimum like we're at least equal. Okay, we should.
And there you go. And they didn't sleep for months because like she was like projecting her nightmares off of herself into all of them every night, according to that one scene towards the end. And even what she did to Agnes was really fucked up at the end. Like honestly, if we're being really honest here.
Well, Agnes, spoiler for fans, like Agnes didn't die, so it's possible we could see her again. But Agnes was kind of presented as like this villain manipulating things when she wasn't really manipulating things.
No.
And what was her like big sin that she wanted to take Wanda's powers? Like it was kind of established like that was like Agnes's thing.
Yeah, because
Agatha's thing.
Agatha, yeah, I think keep calling her Agnes. I don't know. Agatha, sorry.
Because she was Agnes as the neighbor
right.
before she revealed herself. But why? Yeah, Sword wanted to kill Wanda. Yeah, she established that she had the telekinetic and psychic power to literally enslave an entire town and make them believe whatever delusion she came up with. Like that is
scary as fuck.
That's like,
you know, it's the Amanda
level threat.
It's the Amanda Waller thing from the Justice League cartoon. When I think Batman was getting all like bent out of shape with her about Cadmus, and she like went on this whole rant, and I don't think you were necessarily. I think it was supposed to hit close enough to home because you were supposed to agree with her, but it was like you know what, Amanda Waller, like you're fucking right, like they are like what if they do go rogue, like you guys should like be.
You are right to be concerned.
Yeah.
To like take it to kind of like an internet I don't know, not meme, but kind of internet thing. The SCP. Wanda is a Keter level threat. Like she is insane, like ridiculously dangerous.
You know what?
Like she would be like world level. Literally every government that has any sort of sufficient power to keep tabs on things should be like keeping tabs on her every movement. Just because if she went off, like she could be like world level threat.
Well, and it's remember towards the end of what was that? Was it True Blood?
Don't know.
What was that one with Rogue from the? It was based.
Well, Rogue was
the Sookie Stackhouse books.
Yeah.
Is that
True Blood?
True Blood. It kind of goes along with.
Did you watch that show?
My wife did.
My wife did too, and oh my god, I hated that show.
But like it goes back to that show though, when towards the end of that they were getting into like really big, like the creators wanted to push the vampires as like an allegory for LGBTQ problems, and a lot of people rightfully pointed out at the time, and it comes back to like the Cadmus stuff and the Wanda thing, where it's like that's a really shitty allegory because LGBTQ people are not blood-sucking vampires that feed on you and kill you. So no, your allegory sucks because they're not fucking monsters. They're just normal people, and you're using monsters to try and make a point of people that aren't monsters. Like, so your allegory sucks.
Look, I mean, I will always appreciate what Stan Lee did with the X-Men and with mutants in general in the Marvel Universe to make them as an allegory of like racial minorities, and then it was kind of eventually changed into kind of a sexual orientation, that type of thing.
And they're a bad representation of it too, because same thing.
Yeah, that I appreciate that. I think it was a good message, an important message, and literally an entire generation of people like grew up, and maybe that did help in its own little way kind of promote like equality. But it's a bad analogy because we're supposed to sympathize with the mutants.
They could blow your house up because they can't control their powers.
Be like upset at the persecution they suffer, and if you actually think from a pragmatic perspective, like to even take like I'll use Cyclops as an example. It's like, why shouldn't I be worried as fuck about this guy who, if he wants to, can literally look at me and blow the top of my head off with an energy projection that he can shoot out of his fucking eyes.
Remember,
like you would like. Maybe you don't want to oppress him, but you would not treat him as like, oh yeah, we're cool. Like, I don't have any concerns about you. It's like, no, he is literally a living weapon, and he is not even like close to the power level of some mutants.
But remember how Civil War started, and you were supposed to side with Cap and the people that didn't want to register with the government, but that series literally started with the New Warriors taking on a villain they couldn't handle, and an entire school full of children got nuked by...
Hundreds of people, civilians died.
Yeah, because they took on like this nuclear-level villain that blew up while they were fighting him.
I mean, yeah, the Civil War is that's kind of like that's a polarizing storyline, partly because like that came out during like the Bush era, and the writers could not actually, most of the writers of that
could not put their politics aside too.
Crossover, could not actually do.
Given that Civil War at its inception was presented as we're going to have both sides be equally valid, and then it's like, oh, by the way, episode 2, concentration camps.
Well, but
good God!
But see, the problem with that was there was a great side issue with Cap and Iron Man confronting each other in like the ruins of the mansion, and it showed why Iron Man was right, because Iron Man's like, look, man, like I was a fucking alcoholic. You didn't think I wasn't flying this thing drunk? Like, where was the accountability for me, dude? Like, that's why we need to do this.
Yeah. They couldn't. Most of the writers of that that crossover, that big event series, like couldn't set aside their own personal politics to present a more nuanced view. There is a nuanced view to it. Like you would have had to have taken essentially like a libertarian type of perspective, where like the Cap era, like that the Anti-Registration Act should have been more like, look, like you shouldn't want the government involved in deciding. Like, it shouldn't be like state-sponsored superheroes, because that can cause its own issues. And he could have even taken the perspective as like, look, I fought the Nazis. Like, you don't want government control over essentially like weapons. It's like superhuman
and he
weapons.
Could have gone into like conscription and stuff like that.
They could have done that, and that could have been really compelling. They didn't really do that. But otherwise, like, the Iron Man side was basically right, because I agree with you. It's like you literally have people who are like complete, absolute like weapons. Like,
and doing billions of dollars of damage that's not...
Yeah, I mean, again, I know it's superhero stories, like it's not real, you're supposed to suspend disbelief. But if you take, for example, I know he's like he's established as one of the most powerful, so he's not the best example, perhaps. But if you take someone like the Hulk, like Hulk would be almost if you take the Hulk, like you have no other superheroes, you just take the Hulk, and let's say the Hulk is real, okay, and you put him into like our world, the Hulk would be almost unstoppable and cause absolutely like Godzilla level destruction if he was just unleashed in.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. So if you have someone like that, go ahead.
I was gonna say that they jumped on that in Valiant. They referred to him, the people that were at the top end of the scale, as Omega level.
Yeah,
but it was the scary thing about that one was that you had the Omega. One of the Omega levels was running this giant corporation. And so he was it was Toyo Harada.
Yeah.
Was trying to keep everything under his thumb, Whereas the government looked around, they're like, whoa, things have got, like, they tried to have a working relationship with Exo Manowar, and then they built their own, they built the hardcore, which they were able to duplicate some superhuman abilities. So the idea was, okay, we're gonna, we're gonna get in the game because someone's got to try and be a,
counterbalance.
someone's got to try and be a balance or a check on this. But the thing that I think pissed me off most about Civil War is it felt like they went out of their way to make the pro-reg side like monsters. You have this whole big fight happening. Thor, who has been absent, shows up. Well, it turns out that Reed Richards, the dick, on the pro-reg side, made a clone of Thor.
Oh, yeah.
Just to try. And it's like,
Ragnarok, right?
He made this Thor clone in order to show up and be like, and tear through the other side. And it's like, no, wait a minute. What are you doing? It feels like that this is a device you came up with not as an effort to tip the scales, but like it's like Reed Richards being like, well, if we can't have Thor, then I'll just clone him. No one will figure that out in a world of people who can, read minds. And then all it does is make him, make his side look worse. So, Civil War was terrible. It could have been so good.
You know what I find ironic about the politics of some of the writers that were writing that is, if you wanted to own a gun, oh well, like that's bad. Just a personal firearm that could not, in fact, blow up an entire school full of people, or blow up an entire city block with one click of a button. But for some reason, like, you're not supposed to register living weapons when, like a lesser weapon you're supposed to. Like, I don't, like, like the mentality and the arguments online at the time never made sense to me, because, like, it was very contradictory and hypocritical.
Yeah.
It's like you have to register to drive a car, which is a moving weapon in and of itself. Like, so we would really be cool with these supernatural beings, and I'm not saying like the concentration camp stuff and all that, like, I think would be a legitimate concern eventually, but like I don't think people that were thinking like, oh, I'd be all hunky-dory with this, like, are being honest with themselves, because it would be scary as hell.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like some of like the, like, because you have to think about like, let's even use like a lower level super bout. How many millions of dollars of damage do you think happens every time Rhino gets a bug up his butt and Spider-Man has to go catch him?
Oh, a lot.
And who's paying for that? Like, what? Who's paying for your business if Spider-Man goes crashing through your window and then just fucks off to whatever it is he does?
Oh, that brings up a huge hole that I had from Incredibles 2. The very opening of it, they say it's like, no, we didn't want you to be involved. We didn't want you to do anything. There was insurance to cover the fact that the not underwriter. I can't remember what his name was, but the fact that he like stole and robbed a bank. It's like, no, there's insurance for that. And it's like, you have got to be kidding.
Hey, wouldn't
you're seriously good? There's no way they're going to write policies on banks anymore. The FDIC won't insure them anymore.
No, you don't.
Are you out of your mind?
You don't. No, because okay. So, do you guys want some boring insurance talk for a second?
Sure.
So, most insurance policies do not cover things like man-made disasters like acts of war. So, in that instance, like, that would probably not be covered because it would be an exception on your policy, probably under man-made disaster, which would probably fall under the subheader of being like an act of war. So like if Russia nuked your town tomorrow and you somehow survived but your car didn't, your insurance company is probably not going to foot the bill for you. So, and what's also stupid about that though is Mr. Incredible would know that because he worked as an insurance agent and a claims broker. He would know policy details about that stuff.
And he would be able to say, no, there's not insurance for it. And they're going to go, how do you know? He goes, I know. There's not insurance. That bugged
Because
me. Now,
all of his people were his boss got mad because they were infiltrating the bureaucracy.
yeah, they knew the esoteric ways to get claims paid out.
Actually, that movie brilliantly. They should have gotten the writers from that to do Civil War, because they actually came up with a really smart way to take superheroes off the table by bringing civil liability into the equation, because that was actually really clever, and I'm surprised the comic book companies never had the wherewithal to steal that.
I think they touched on trying to sue Superman once.
Daredevil kind of did it when Matt Murdock was doing like they publicly denying being Daredevil, but then he lost his license because they figured out he was Daredevil. So I think they kind of touched on it a bit.
Yeah, but they haven't ever. Yeah, they haven't gotten that to stick, because with some people it's like, who are you gonna? You're not gonna catch up to Batman to serve him for a summons, right? Like that's just not gonna happen. And then you're probably not gonna catch up to a bunch of people to do it.
I mean, the secret identities of like the Flash and stuff, though. I mean, like when Wally West was the Flash, you knew who he was.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of other people who are public. Well, the Fantastic Four are public. I mean, people know Johnny Storm is. Yeah. I think Iron Man, essentially, you would know who he was.
But it's like it's an interesting wrinkle to put to it, but like in the Incredibles universe, it's far easier to catch up to most of the well-known superheroes, as opposed to Superman, right? Like he hears the camera shutters going off, so he moves his face so the picture blurs and they can't get a clear picture. Good luck showing up with a summons for Superman, but running down Mr. Incredible is a sight easier. But anyway, that's we've gotten pretty far in the weeds.
Can I just add like one final thought to the I guess the pro registration, why it would make sense. I was just I looked it up. I was reminded of do you guys read the Avengers the Initiative?
That was a good comic.
Any of that? It was a good comic, but the premise of the comic was kind of young superheroes who either like just had their powers, or they're kind of starting out, but with regards to the with regards to like the Superhuman Registration Act, like they basically were brought and trained, supposed to be trained by Avengers to kind of utilize their powers, become heroes. But there was one character on that stands out to me. And it's like, this is a great example as to why you would want a Superhuman Registration Act. Cloud9, you remember that character?
Vaguely.
She had what sounds like the most benign powers. Like she was use a cloud alien gas. So basically she could create clouds, which doesn't sound like, well, that sounds like a stupid power. Except it's like, what could she do with the clouds? Well, she could like basically sit on the cloud and fly with it to the point where she could literally outmaneuver F-16 fighter jets. She could also use the cloud she could generate. She could use it to suffocate people by forcing it down their throats. She could use it as like a mist, which could obfuscate her location, so people couldn't actually see her in the cloud. What they actually had her do as part of the initiative is she became a sniper. It's like you literally could have a character that could generate a cloud, float up on the cloud, like way up high in the sky, use her sniper rifle to just pick off anyone she fucking wants to, and then literally fly away at super speed once she's actually eliminated her target. Like that's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
You would have a superpower assassin who, even if you do confront her, she could use her gas to like ram it down your throat and kill you. Like that is just, it sounds like a stupid power, and suddenly this one character is an absolute like lethal threat. So yeah, like if you had someone like that in real life, like you would want the government would want to keep tabs on her. Like she literally she could assassinate like presidents and world leaders if she wanted to, or was paid enough.
It's like Storm in the X-Men. She like had winds blow up and threw lightning, but the most common stuff she did was pretty small scale. There was oh my gosh, I'm going way far back. There was a book I read way years ago it was kind of a contemporary sci-fi book called Weather War about this. There was this guy, this scientist who worked for the government that made a machine that would manipulate the weather. So what was he trying to do? He made it in the Vietnam War era. His effort was he tried to rain out like the North Vietnamese. He tried to like drown all their crops, rain out the Ho Chi Minh Trail, that sort of stuff, basically to just cut their supply lines and all that kind of thing. How hard do you think it would be for Storm to just wreck the supply chain for a given country? She just hustles off somewhere. She's like, oh, hey, I see you're growing lots of corn. Not anymore. Now it's all washed away in this crazy rainstorm.
Well, and you know, and even though in her origins though, because if you read Giant Size X-Men #1, like she's essentially revered as a goddess in parts of Africa, and
right.
All you would need is for her to not have a benevolent take on that, and to just be giving people beneficial weather effects for some food, and instead, you know, turn that into, hey, those crops over there. It'd be a real shame if
in protection rate.
Yeah. Or even like, but I mean, like, it's just like guys like Pyro, Iceman, even like Mystique. I mean, look at all the trouble Mystique has caused over the years.
That's the best super spy you can have.
Or even like Rogue, or like think about Morbius. Or even Spider-Man. Like, Spider-Man had some dark days. Remember, he turned into a giant spider creature at some point.
Oh, that's right, isn't it?
When he grew the extra arms, and then he turned into the man spider.
The point is, Civil War was done badly.
No, and I think what I'm ashamed of there is I think the pro-registration side was ultimately right, but I think they really, because people could not get over their own personal politics, I think there could have been a really great story that showed the pitfalls of both sides, but the benefits of both sides too. Like, I think Matt's right, like with the Cap side being more libertarian of, hey, do you really want the government involved in this?
Yeah, and if you want to take like modern politics into it, like it could have been a mix of like libertarian kind of arguments / like anti-fascist arguments, because Cap could have made, better than anyone, a legitimate case where it's like, look, you do not want state sanctioned or state sponsored superhumans. Like that could go down a really bad path for a lot of different reasons, and they could have really explored all of that, and they didn't. They were trying to make like a Bush era analog, like War on Terror / Guantanamo Bay type of thing, and it's like it again, like, I'm not trying to get into the politics of it. It's really just more like I get frustrated with things from a narrative storytelling perspective.
Yeah,
where it's like you could have done a lot more from a narrative perspective, and you didn't, and that frustrates me, because I think it could have had a really compelling, and you could have, it would have been, I would say, relatively easy, but you could have made an effort to make it like a really thought-provoking storyline, where you're also like kind of going like, well, like you said, Brad, like, well, I can see the rationale of both sides, and that would have been way more like thought-provoking and memorable in a positive way as a storyline. You could have thought like, wow, that's the classic storyline that they've done, because you saw the shades of gray of everything.
Yeah, and
There,
I would have
it's
done
it.
like I would, but see, like I would have done like a book that was just like straight up like pro government like propaganda. I don't know
Mm.
what character I'd use for that. Like just do like a total like maybe like a 6 issue mini that's just total like pro registration propaganda, and then do like the frontline thing, which they did do, like do that like as the counterbalance. Like you could have really done some cool like stuff in there.
It goes back to what aggravates me so much about WWE stuff is it's wasted potential. There's so much good stuff that could come out of the idea that they didn't do. They just pissed it away. And so I'm angry by the fact that it could have been so good and it wasn't.
Because I think a book that handles politics really well is Transmetropolitan.
I've heard people say good things about it,
Because
but
it's
I have not
very
read it.
the main character is very left wing, and he goes on these very left wing rants and stuff, and he's very much a case of well, whether you agree or disagree with him, he's more of a you're not wrong, Spider Jerusalem, you're just an asshole, which really
Okay.
counterbalances like the politics of it well, because he's just such an unrepentant like scumbag.
Okay.
So, but like, I like stuff like that. Like, but I don't know that they just. It felt like with Civil War that they gave it a very. They gave very much lip service to Iron Man's side instead of them just being the villains.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a like who's right question, like from the beginning. It was supposed to be like, oh, it could be one or the other. It's up to how you interpret
And
it. By the way, it's this one.
and it should have
It's
been.
just this one.
And it did those subtle like emotional manipulations that I hate in things. Like I hate when I'm gonna use like a comparison. I hate when a video game gives you like 5 or 6 romantic options throughout the game, but they do those subtle emotional manipulations to point you at the character that you're air quotations like really supposed to pick.
Oh yeah.
And it felt like that's what they were doing in the book, whereas I really kind of wish they could have open-ended it more, and I don't think it would have been that hard, and just let you kind of decide what you thought yourself, and even maybe like leave it open so you could say, you know what, like I think both sides have their points and their flaws, but they're both wrong in how they're handling it. Like I wish they could have really left it open-ended for the reader, and like maybe left it more up to debate between people instead of everyone being like, well, this is why the narrative struggled.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're gonna put a cap on it here. We started with Darkwing, and then we just kind of went all over the place. So,
Civil War is a storyline that I really have a lot of strong feelings for, because I feel like they're like the start of it was really good, and like I was super into it, and then they just did not fulfill the potential of the original idea.
it's like oh, now I'm not gonna remember his name. It's like the one character in Overwatch. Such potential, but then we don't get that. So,
I don't speak
all
Overwatch,
right.
so I'll take your word for it.
Everybody out there, we want to say thank you again for joining us for this episode. We would love to hear from you on our social media. Just a reminder, we have, our 4Corners code and our Redbubble store. But more than anything, thank you for listening with us. We do requests if you submit them, so feel free to send them in through any of our social media platforms. And so, this is Shad here with Matt and Brad. We've been in 3 Corners. You're in the 4th, and we will catch you next time.